Sometimes, true greatness isn't just measured by talent or fame but by the kindness we show in unexpected moments. This is a story about Shaquille O'Neal, Big Shaq, a man known for his towering presence on the court and larger-than-life personality off it. But on this particular day, it was his heart that took center stage on a flight that many would remember. The cabin was abuzz with activity as passengers settled into their seats. It was one of those flights where the first-class section gleamed with luxury and economy bustled with families, tired travelers, and the occasional crying baby. Shaquille O'Neal, Big Shaq himself, was hard to miss as he boarded. His massive frame seemed to fill the entire aisle as he greeted the flight attendants with a warm smile and a booming, "How y'all doing today?" Shaq had barely settled into his plush first-class seat when he noticed her, a young black woman, visibly pregnant, standing a little awkwardly near the back of the plane. She looked exhausted, her hands resting on her belly as she tried to maneuver her carry-on into the overhead bin. A few people offered her sympathetic glances, but no one seemed to move to help. Shaq stood up, his head nearly brushing the overhead compartments, and made his way down the aisle. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said gently, his deep voice cutting through the hum of the cabin. "You okay?" "Oh, I'm fine," she said with a polite smile, though her tired eyes betrayed her. "Just trying to get through this flight?" Shaq glanced at her seat, an economy aisle seat squeezed between two strangers, and shook his head. "That's not gonna do," he said firmly. "Come on, you're in my seat." Her eyes widened. "Your seat? In first class?" "Oh, no, I couldn't." "I'm not a skin," Shaq interrupted with a grin. "I'm tellin'. Let me grab your bag." Before she could protest further, Shaq had taken her carry-on and gestured for her to follow him back up the aisle. Passengers whispered and craned their necks, watching the scene unfold. When they reached his first-class seat, Shaq motioned for her to sit. "Here you go. Stretch out, relax. You and your little one deserve it." As the woman sat down, overwhelmed with gratitude, a flight attendant approached, her expression tight. She was middle-aged, impeccably dressed, and clearly unimpressed with the situation. "Mr. O'Neal," she began in a clipped tone, "this is first class, reserved for our premium passengers, like yourself. We can't have—" Shaq raised an eyebrow, cutting her off. "Can't have what?" he said, his voice calm but firm. "I paid for this seat, right?" "Yes, but—" "And I can decide who sits in it, can't I?" "Well, yes, but typically, first class is for our celebrity and business class clientele. And today," Shaq said, crossing his arms, "it's for her." "You got a problem with that?" The attendant hesitated, clearly unsure how to respond. Shaq's commanding presence was hard to argue with, especially when paired with the murmurs of approval from the other passengers. "Very well," she said finally, though her tone was less than gracious. She turned and walked away, muttering something about policy. Shaq turned back to the woman, who looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did," Shaq replied. "Nobody should have to sit squished like that when they're carrying the future. Besides," he added with a wink, "you made my day. You're like my good deed for the week." The rest of the flight was uneventful, though Shaq spent much of it standing in the galley, chatting with the flight attendants, who warmed up considerably, and taking selfies with excited fans. When the plane landed, the woman tried to thank him again, but Shaq waved it off. "Take care of that little one," he said with a warm smile. "That's all the thanks I need." As he walked off the plane, passengers clapped and cheered, not for the basketball legend but for the man who had shown that being a giant isn't just about size, it's about the size of your heart. As the plane touched down and passengers began to disembark, the young woman was among the last to leave. Waiting at the arrival's gate was her husband, a tall man with kind eyes and a nervous energy about him. He had been worried about her traveling so late in her pregnancy and couldn't wait to see her safe and sound. When she appeared, his face lit up, and he rushed to her side. "You okay, babe?" he asked, his hands immediately reaching to steady her. "How was the flight?" "It was amazing," she said, shaking her head in disbelief as they began walking toward baggage claim. "You won't believe what happened." He looked at her with concern, his brow furrowing. "What happened? Was something wrong?" "No, no," she said, smiling as she placed a hand on his arm to reassure him. "Something incredible. You'll never guess who gave me their first-class seat so I could be comfortable." He tilted his head, still unsure where this was going. "Who?" She grinned. "Shaquille O'Neal. Big Shaq." He stopped walking, staring at her as if she'd just told him she'd met the president. "Wait, what? Shit? The Shaq? The basketball legend Shaq?" "Yes," she laughed, her excitement bubbling over. "He saw me struggling and he insisted I take his seat. He even carried my bag for me." Her husband's eyes widened as the enormity of the gesture sank in. "Are you serious? He just gave you his seat like that?" She nodded. And when one of the flight attendants tried to make a fuss about it, he stood his ground. He said it was his seat, and he could give it to whoever he wanted. Her husband shook his head in disbelief, his voice thick with emotion. "That's incredible. I've always liked the guy, but, what a man. I wish I could thank him in person." "Well," she said, taking out her phone, "I did manage to sneak a selfie with him before the flight ended." She showed him the photo, and he let out a low whistle. "That's going up on the fridge," he said with a grin, though his eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You know, it's not just about the seat. It's about what it means. Someone like him, with all his fame and money, taking the time to care about you and our baby? That's special." Unbeknownst to Shaq, several passengers on the flight had captured the moment on their phones. By the time he landed, social media was already buzzing with videos and photos of the gesture. Tweets and posts with captions like, "Shaq giving up his first-class seat for a pregnant woman, what a legend," and "Shaq proves once again why he's one of the greatest, on and off the court," began to trend. By the next morning, the story had made its way to news outlets. Headlines like "Shaquille O'Neal's act of kindness inspires millions" dominated television and online news. Talk shows and radio stations discussed the gesture, praising it as a simple yet profound reminder of the good in the world. When reporters caught up with Shaq during a public appearance, they couldn't resist bringing it up. "Shaq, we've all heard about what you did for that pregnant woman on the flight. Care to comment?" Shaq, ever the humble giant, waved a hand dismissively. "Man, y'all making a big deal out of nothing," he said with a chuckle. "I just saw someone who needed a little help, that's all. Ain't like I saved the world or anything." "But," one reporter pressed, "don't you think gestures like these can inspire others to do the same?" Shaq paused, his expression softening. "Look, it don't take much to be kind. You see somebody who could use a hand, you help 'em out. Simple as that. If everybody did a little something for somebody else, yeah, the world would be a better place. But I'm not doing it for the cameras or the headlines. I just do it 'cause it's the right thing to do." The story lingered in the public eye for weeks, with countless people sharing their own acts of kindness inspired by Shaq's example. Talk show hosts and influencers coined the term "Shaq it forward," encouraging others to pay it forward in their daily lives. As for the young woman and her husband, the memory of that flight became a cherished family story. Months later, when their baby boy was born, they gave him the middle name Shaquille as a tribute to the man who had shown them that sometimes kindness can change the course of someone's day or even their life. And Shaq? He continued living his life as he always had, leaving a trail of goodwill wherever he went, proving that being a giant isn't just about size. It's about the size of your heart. And that's the story of how Shaquille O'Neal reminded us all that kindness truly makes the world a better place. It's these small yet powerful acts of compassion that ripple through our lives, inspiring us to do better and be better. Imagine if we all did just one good deed today. What a world we could create. If this story inspired you, let us know in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment of unexpected kindness? We'd love to hear your stories. Don't forget to like this video if it warmed your heart, subscribe to our channel for more uplifting and empowering stories like this one, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, let's share and celebrate the goodness in the world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.